Welcome to this video series on ITIL Foundation. This is topic 1, Key Concepts of Service Management, video 2, Value and Co-creation. Welcome friends, glad to see you back. Even though this is a relatively short lecture, it's one of the most important ones. In this section we'll talk about exploring value and value co-creation. This is a point of view that became important in ITIL version 4 and the emergent version 5, and how we need to shift our thinking away from IT simply delivering services and towards IT customers working together to create value and to co-create value. Why? As I said, this is the main paradigm shift for ITIL version 4 and the emerging version 5. Value is no longer considered something simply created, but rather it is co-created between the consumer and the provider. So, how do we define value? How does ITIL define, what do we mean by value? Value is equal to the benefits plus the usefulness, and this is an important thing. When we do a project, when we create something, when we spend money in a company, it's to gain some benefit, supposedly. And now we want to be sure that that benefit is useful to the end consumer that we designed it for. This is called an outcome. Benefits and usefulness is an outcome. We're no longer just concerned with the features, the functions, the use case. We are now concerned with the value that this thing we're working on creates, and not just that, but how the benefits of what we create improve the life of the end consumer. How does it make what they do better? In their terms. Now, of course, we have to balance that across cost and risk. And we must always remember, every one of our stakeholders will have their own version of what value is to them. And they're important to us. But the most important one is the consumer's version of value. Indeed, in almost all the classes I teach now, I start off with a module on risk management. Why? Because we wish to align what we do in technology and how we make decisions in technology with business and how they make decisions in business. We want as much as possible for these two things to overlap with each other. If we're going to do that in technology, then we're going to have to understand, how does business view value? Well, it's actually a very simple calculation. The value proposition that business lives and dies on is benefits or perceived benefits minus the costs equals value. Imagine that we had a project where the disbenefits outweighed the benefits. That's not a good deal, and we should avoid that. But as things change, and we get to the point where the benefits now are above the disbenefits, this is becoming a better deal. And the bigger that gap gets, the better the deal is. Indeed, what we're interested in is the measure between those benefits and those disbenefits, between the good things and the bad things. And there's a name for that measure. And that name is value. This is what value is. So let's talk a little bit more about risk management. First of all, a risk is just another word for uncertainty. That's all it means. We're not really sure about what's going to happen. Of course, we're never sure. There's always risk involved in almost everything we do. Now, risk could be positive, which is an opportunity and provides us with benefits. And risk can be negative, which is called a threat and provides us with disbenefits, bad things. And then, as you can see there, risk management plugs directly into the business value proposition. We are focused on benefits versus disbenefits because those two things considered together gives you value. Let's talk a little more about risk. Risk in its simplest form can be calculated as likelihood times impact. Likelihood is how likely is something to happen. Let's focus on bad things to avoid here. How likely is a bad thing to happen? And if it happens, how much is it going to hurt? You could have something of very low likelihood and very high impact, like a fire. Fires don't happen that much because we have good warning systems, good suppression systems. Our building materials are less flammable these days, so it's much less likely that a major fire will break out. However, if it does, it's going to have a huge impact. So let's talk about the types of risk. First, we have inherent risk. That's the built-in risk. An example, the inherent risk of skydiving is much higher than the inherent risk of bowling. But the most important thing we can do with risk is respond to it. For negative risk, we try to reduce it. We never expect it to reach zero. That's not our goal. It's not likely that it ever will. What we're trying to do is, if we have a tolerance level, if we have an acceptable level of risk in our organization, and we should, and you should know it. Whatever that level is, we're trying to take the risks we're dealing with and lower it through these different responses so that it is equal to or lower to our appetite. So what are these four main risk responses? First, we have avoid. We'd like to avoid as much negative risk as we can. But you know what? You can't avoid everything. So what risk is left over after avoidance, we will mitigate through controls. Controls could be firewalls, monitoring systems, all these kinds of things. Now, controls can be proactive, which is called a safeguard, and its job is to reduce the likelihood. And controls can be reactive, which are called countermeasures, and they're meant to reduce the impact. You can use one or the other, or both. Even better, both. But we can't control everything, so there's probably going to be some risk left over. Now we might try to transfer it or share it. Transfer, a lot of people think, well, transfer, we'll give it to insurance companies, and indeed, it's true, that's true. But also, frequently, we'll try to hire somebody to take two things from us, some of our money and some of our risk. Take it away. And you can find a company that's better at doing a certain thing than you are that can take that risk off your back, or a portion of it. At the end, we just have to accept we've done everything we can, and if our residual risk, that's the risk left over, after you have your inherent risks minus your avoidances, what's left over is your residual risk. It is not our desire to get it to zero, it's our desire to get it beneath our risk appetite. If our residual risk is above our risk appetite, we really shouldn't do this thing. Now, what do we mean by value co-creation? Well, in a traditional mindset, IT builds the solution, it controls it, it delivers it to the user, trains them on it, and they hand it over to the business, consume it, and good luck. That model implies that value is created by the provider and largely by IT, by technology. The customer is passive, they receive it. Once they've signed off on it, they're stuck with it. But the model breaks down. It breaks down in the physical world, and it really breaks down in the digital world. So one of the things that we're interested in here, another paradigm shift, is how technology can move back and support the business, and the business interacts with the consumer. And this is pretty interesting. Value is co-created using active collaboration, sharing the risks, sharing the outcomes, and an ongoing interaction, a relationship. The more you do that, the more of a strategic partner you become, the better your business is. For example, IT provides some kind of collaboration software, like Zoom maybe. The employees must adopt and use it effectively, and they must all use it. Leadership must encourage that behavioral change. If users don't log in and don't use it, no value is created for that particular service. Both parties contribute to this. Consumers have a role. They provide us with clear requirements. They provide us with feedback. Some of their resources will be necessary. Some change in their behavior is quite possibly necessary. They have to make decisions, and they have to make good decisions, and they have to make quick decisions. And at some point, they will have to accept some risk. We cannot get it to zero. It's almost impossible. Now, they're not passive recipients. They provide data, configure systems, use tools, and accept or mitigate the risk. And without the consumer, there's no chance for value to materialize. They're critical. That's where the value and the outcome happens. Of course, likewise, the provider has a job to do as well. They configure the original environment. They provide security and support. So they're contributing to value that way. And the consumer, as we said, is providing quality data, training, process alignment, cultural adoption. If they don't, then we're blocked. Then value can't happen. If users resist to adopt this new system, and people they're busy, they tend to, why are you changing everything? System technology works. Business value is zero. We're saying the system technology works, but the consumer doesn't accept it. The system technology works, the business value is still zero, even though all the stuff in green here has been done well. So did IT deliver value even if they did a good job? No, they delivered zero value. Both of these, the green provider side and the yellow consumer side, have to work together to co-create value. If they don't, no value is created. So we were saying this is all about, this entire topic, this major topic is about the service value system. The ITIL service value system is designed to ensure that all components work together, including guiding principles, governance, the service value chain, the practices, and continual improvement. Governance aligns the direction. It's what middle and upper management does to make sure things are moving in the right direction according to our strategy. The practices enable the outcomes to happen. That's where we have skills, and we put those skills to use to make sure those outcomes are happening for the end consumer. And value flows through all of this through the use of collaboration. So we have to have excellent tools for collaboration. Notice how opportunity and demand enters the system and value exits the system. This is the ideal. And you might say, okay, opportunity for a new thing. What do you mean by demand? We'll talk about it a few times, but let's answer the questions briefly. Ring, ring, hello, service desk. I can't reach the email server. That's demand. The demand is to be able to reach the email server again. Value co-creation means sharing the risks. We have shared risks, we have shared accountability, we have shared costs, and hopefully at the end we have shared success. If a system fails due to poor user input, lack of engagement with the system, they just don't use it. Business process misalignment, it doesn't quite work in the context of the consumer's environment. The responsibility isn't solely on IT. It is on IT, but not alone. It's also on the consumer, because we should have been working together all along. It will help us avoid some of these problems. That means IT and the business has to listen to the consumer, and the consumer has to inform us of what is really right and wrong. Questions for you to think about in your environment. Do people in your organization still act like deliverers instead of collaborators? Nah, here you go, done. Take, huh? We're no longer like that. Now we are collaborators. Tell me how it's going. Tell me what I need to change. Tell me what you need. How close am I? Are service level agreements framed around outputs or outcomes? Outputs are fine. They're associated with functions. I need this, I need this, I need this, I need these. Functional things, that's normal. But it needs to go beyond that. It also has to ask, tell me, dear consumer, how is your life going to improve once you start using this? We'll try to put that into words, and we'll try to put that into the SLA as well. Are you measuring technical success or business success? Now, it's very normal that you have to measure technical success. Don't get me wrong. You'll be looking at throughput. You'll be looking at uptime. You'll be looking at things like this. It's very normal. But again, we want to go a little bit beyond that. I want to know, well, this is a success if it doesn't break down. I don't consider my car a success because it doesn't break down. I want a little more from it than that. What do I use my car for? To fetch groceries, to take me to work, to travel in from time to time. Those are the outcomes I want. Why? Why do I want to travel from time to time? So I don't go crazy. Why do I want to have a car to pick up a few things? Because some of the things I pick up are too big to deal with. So the outcome is I'm more efficient. Try to find that thing. Hey, I want a handgun. Why do you want a handgun? Well, I do a little bit of hunting. Okay. That's more in line with the outcome. Are customers treated as partners? Or are they considered a pain in the back? They can be both. We have to live in the real world. But your mindset, should be more and more on seeing them as a partner. Because you won't have a job and you won't have an income if you don't have good customers. Value is defined by the consumer, not by us. Services enable value, they don't contain it. Right? There's not value built into a service. It's a tool like a hammer. A hammer sitting on your shelf doesn't do anything. But you take a nail and you have a piece of your fence that's coming loose and you pound a fresh nail in there, well, some value has been created and that hammer was really important. Value is realized in use, not, like I said, applying the service. And sometimes the value is only obvious over time. You go on a diet, you go to the gym, you do positive things for your body. It may take a couple months before you see a really significant impact. Providers and consumers work together to co-create value. That's the message. Excuse me, friends. IT supports the business and users and customers consume, and they have to work together to create value. So IT delivers collaboration tools, for example, and employees use the tools effectively so that everything they do is more informed and more aligned with what they're trying to accomplish. That's called efficiency. Both sides contribute to productivity. You might have training and support to improve things coming from the provider. And of course, the consumer will consume. That concludes our ITIL Foundation Topic 1, Video 2. Thank you for your attention.